Now, I'm very excited to welcome back a fantastic capper in Mr. Shawn Knoche from theoddsbreakers.com. You can follow Shawn on X at TheGreatKnoche. Shawn, what is happening in the Midwest, my man?
Well, it's a beautiful day. It's a little chilly. It was 32 degrees this morning when I woke up in Mazomanie, Wisconsin. But we're getting a nice warm weekend for NFL weather. I'm going to the Packer game on Sunday, and it looks like it's going to be 72 and sunny. So winter hasn't quite set all the way in, but we're getting closer up here.
We certainly are, man. It's funny. It's finally cooled off here in Arizona, but I do miss this fall smell in the air from Wisconsin. Obviously, the change of leaves is beautiful. That's got to be happening right now, so that's always fun. Musky fishing, obviously, in the fall too. It's probably getting a little cold at the lakes, but that's always good. But man, what else was good is you and I betting the Dodgers yesterday. I took first 5, you took full game, and I'm like, well, if he's taking full game, I got to take full game, and it kind of worked out for both of us.
Yep. Yeah, I wish I would have played it today. I got a little skittish coming back on that fourth game, the way the Mets have been bouncing around, but looking like the Dodgers are going to take that 3-1 lead, at least last I checked. So,
according to the line, it says that Yamamoto against Quintana, and Quintana, not completely sold on him. I don't know. It's his. I've seen Q go bad and go good, and in pressure situations he seems worse. So what are those?
Yeah, I'm just not laying 135 with Yamamoto the way he's been going too either. So just watch and enjoy tonight.
Well, the Mets got a lot of motivation. They want to meet the Yankees in the World Series, of course. That'd be crazy in New York World Series like that. Have we ever had one of those? Is it better? I mean, I'm not sure.
There was a Subway Series. You remember it was Clemens threw the bat piece back at Piazza after little. I think it was. I want to say 2000 or 99, right around there. Might have my ears mixed up slightly, but yeah, there has been recently.
Okay, you're right. Now I remember Piazza. He was an awesome catcher. Holy cow! Yeah, that was back in my college days. So there you go. No, it's a huge week of football too. Obviously, it's interesting that we only have 2 teams on the bye, which is nice. It's always good to have more games to bet. But Shawn, I like to always ask, what conference do you think is the best now? I think NFC or AFC. I personally leaned AFC before the season, but now I'm not so sure because I see teams like the Lions, the Vikings, the 49ers, kind of sitting pretty well up there. And even though the Cowboys and the Eagles took hits, I'm just thinking the AFC, besides the Chiefs, can all, and the Ravens in the playoffs, all seems to have problems.
Yeah, so here's the NFL overreaction, week 7, right? We're 6 games in. Power rankings for both of us have adjusted a ton, up and down. Plenty of teams moving up and down that board, right? And, you look at it right now, week 7 snapshot. The NFC North looks like they're loaded for bear. They're ready to rock and roll and go. The AFC North, which we thought was going to be, one of the best divisions in football, Cincinnati started off slow, had some rough losses. Their defense can't stop anyone, and the Browns can't score without Joe Flacco at the helm, apparently. So that division's way down. And then you got the AFC East with Tua getting hurt with the Dolphins and Aaron Rodgers, coming back off the injury, and that offense not performing at all. So, you got 4 teams in the AFC that I expected to be a lot higher up that aren't. And then you got the Vikings, Bears making some noise over there in the NFC. But, I think when we get to the playoff picture time, as we get closer to week 17, especially if Tua comes back healthy, I think things are going to normalize a little bit. I still think the AFC is a stronger overall conference with overall quarterback play. I still don't fully trust Sam Darnold's going to lead the Vikings to the promised land. I actually made a bet 2 weeks ago, and I wish they would have lost a game or two for them to miss the playoffs at plus 400. I just don't see how that team continues to roll the way they are. And certainly, some of the pieces that they got in the offseason are going to play some dividends. But I think the biggest thing is just, Kevin O'Connell, a coach, coaching up Darnold in a big way, right? But at some point, I still think he's Sam Darnold. So we'll see. I think the AFC is still a stronger conference. I think it'll play out that way as we get towards the end of the season.
Okay. No, it's fair. I think they're very close. And, it's just interesting concept. Really doesn't have anything to do with the sports betting. The AFC does have to go to the NFC, though, for that extra game. So that is, from record-wise, is interesting to consider as well. But anyways, let's go to overrated, underrated. And I always like to ask if according to the market, and it doesn't have to be a bet you're making this week, maybe like maybe like the Colts a little bit, but it's a bad spot, What team do you think would be overrated? And then give me one that you think would be underrated, according to the market and your power.
I think overrated right now, still coming in as the Seahawks for me. A lot of sports pundits, a lot of dollars coming in on the Seahawks, especially the last few weeks. If you look at where they played out, beating the 3 teams they did, a couple of fairly easy wins with the injury bug that they had bet and beating the Patriots, and then they come out and lose as a touchdown favorite to the Giants, and obviously not show well last week either. And then they come in this week and they're getting 3 or 2.5. It's been bouncing around, I think, against the Falcons. And I had that game at +4 right away. I think the Seahawks are beat up. I think the betting market and the pundits are still on them because of the coach. And I think they're probably my most overrated group so far as where the betting markets have. I was going to pull up where they were against the spread. I forgot to look at that before we had it in here. They're 1-4-1 against the spread currently. So I think that still fits, and I think that still plays out a little bit. You got one you want to talk about before we go to underrated?
Yeah,
Want to keep on rolling here?
I'll go underrated. I'll go overrated, then we'll go to underrated. I'm gonna still go with the Bengals. Joe Burrow is kind of Superman, and same with Jamar Chase, but the rest of the team very averagey or to below average. That defense is still below average. I just think their last week against the Giants was more about the Giants just being incompetent, throwing turnovers in the red zone, and just blowing the game themselves. And there's nothing that shows me that Joe Burrow and this team should be above 0 for average. I believe I have them a half point under average for Cincinnati. And it kind of goes to that whole AFC North. Now, what you said being a little bit overrated, especially with how bad Cleveland's looked. So I find that interesting. If I was going to take another, I'd go with Buffalo if I'm looking at the spread at 9.5. But the Xavier Sneed injury bugs me a little bit. But it just also feels like Buffalo's kind of a team that's Superman quarterback, just like Cincinnati, but with nobody else. Now they have Mari Cooper, but Mari Cooper's been there for a while. Man, he's a little aged. Maybe he'll help the team a little bit, but it's not like he knows the playbook yet. So, what about you for underrated?
For underrated, I'm actually sticking. It's the same game. That's why I'm probably going to end up on them this week. The Falcons. I think they've kind of played out a little bit. If you look at where they were last week, it's a 6-point road favorite. I think that was the anomaly against the Panthers, but they've been kind of chugging along, getting too many points in a few games at home against the Chiefs. And I think Kirk Cousins is finally hitting his stride, and I don't think the betting market has quite caught up to them yet either. I wasn't as high on the Falcons coming into the season. Actually, I think I picked the Saints and the Buccaneers to finish ahead of them. But the way they're playing right now, the defense is holding their own. Cousins is starting to hit his stride, and I still think the betting market's got a couple of weeks where there could be some value on the Falcons yet.
Well, there you go. I think that's a little tell on what's happened in this game.
Might be a hint.
We'll get to that. That just might be a hint. No, unfortunately, Seattle does have a bunch of injuries, and I think that kind of weighs into it. But then you see this line move going towards the 3 when the Falcons were, bigger favorites, and that's a little head scratching to me too, because I have Atlanta better than I do Seattle. Seattle with those injuries are very concerning. So. I have Seattle a decent dog here myself. So my numbers say Atlanta. Maybe I'll get to the window with you. For underrated team, God, it's funny. It's so ugly down there. But I'm going to go. Oh God, these are disgusting, man. The problem is you got to think about quarterbacks and things like that. I got to go with Cleveland, and believe it or not, it sucks to say that, but I've seen Deshaun Watson better. I think getting Chubb back is going to help, and I think getting rid of Amari Cooper kind of might boost this team. It's not like you can penalize them for getting rid of a guy that hasn't been catching the ball. Maybe him and Watson were just off, and he just wasn't running her routes. But Cleveland was super injured, and now they're finally kind of healthy. They have their tackles back, and they got their water under their feet a little bit. I think that I think they're slightly underrated, so you can kind of see what direction I'm thinking about coming up here.
We both had an underrated or overrated on the same game, huh?
Absolutely, man. I had to equally yell on that. So we'll get to that game. And let's start with, you're funny, this is a Thursday pod, and if you're watching this show live, I don't like the 3 for Denver. At 2.5, I kind of like them. The Saints are just so injured with their 2 top wide receivers. Taysom Hill, obviously. It's just like everybody they practice with is screwed. And you have Rattler. I can see it possibly, with Sean Payton getting some margin, but I wouldn't lay it over 2.5, Shawn. What about you? Quick on this.
I'm not touching the game. Rattler week 2 will be better, but the Denver defense is allowing the second least yards per play in the NFL right now. They're holding everybody they've played. And granted, there's not a lot of great quarterback play that they faced so far, but they're holding everybody to low yardage per play. And I don't think Spencer Rattler is going to come in here and solve anything without his top 2 receivers, without Taysom Hill. So if I had a lean, it'd still be Denver with laying the 3 here. We kind of thought about last week. I had very few plays last week. There were so many big road favorites, and I'm like, this is just the way the NFL works. Usually it's the big road favorites and the dogs all cover. And last week, I think Vegas got hammered with all those road favorites covering, and we're starting one off this week. And I'm still stuck in the mentality. I don't want to play that road favorite at 3, but I just don't see New Orleans being able to move the ball much against this Denver defense.
Yeah, it's weird that they lose Singleton and Baron Browning, and they're just seem better afterwards. Although I will say the group of offenses they've been playing hasn't been the best, so maybe that's part of it too. But I will say that my TikTok prop hopefully hits. I took Javonte Williams over 16.5, so receiving yards, that is. So I'm hoping that hits. And
what are you, 11-3 on TikTok props this year?
10-3.
10-3.
Yeah, so I'm happy with that. So far, so good, my man. Last year was killer. I can't believe it's still going like this. But, it's funny. You put in the work and you find the edges in these things. And they don't have the highest limits, but, it shouldn't matter for most people anyway. Patriots, Jaguars minus 5.5, total 42. Now, the Jags stay in London. And, man, I bet they didn't get out golfing too much after that last performance against the Bears. What do you think about this game? I think there's going to be some weather, but I believe it's in Wembley, which is kind of a weird roof. So anything on this one?
Yeah, I'm trying not to think about this game, actually. These are 2 ugly teams. I had Jacksonville a lot higher coming into the season than what they performed at so far, and Trevor Lawrence certainly has not progressed again. I mean, what is he, 5 years? Is this 4 years or 5 years? I can't remember which year he's on, but he is certainly not moving forward. And at some point, the interceptions and everything else are going bye-bye. And I believe, where was the Mac Jones news? Did that come in yet or not?
No, it didn't. I didn't see. I didn't see that anything about Mac Jones.
Yeah, there was something where they were talking about playing Jones earlier in the week, but I didn't find any official sources found out. Trying to look right now. So,
how embarrassing would that be if you just paid your guy $55 million and then you put Jones in? I mean, literally a couple months apart. That's awful.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I just saw something on Twitter glancing around yesterday when I was looking, but I think you got to look, at Jacksonville at the minus 5.5 and think about where their defense is. They can't stop anybody. And Drake May, I think, had the 10th highest success rate among starting quarterbacks last week. So it's not like he was completely over his skis. Obviously, they didn't move the ball a ton, but he was performing, at least mid-level for an NFL quarterback. Jacksonville's defense has been a sieve against everybody they've played. And if it keeps moving that way, if it gets to 6, I think I got to take the Patriots. But as of yet, I haven't put anything in.
Fair enough. I hope I don't have to bet this game. I don't want to wake up early for this game. I had to last week to watch my Bears, but this is his 4th year for Trevor Lawrence, and very, very solemn performances. And the only good thing about him is he's been healthy his 4 years. So I mean, I think he needs to run the ball a little bit more. But then again, when his defense is screwing up and his guys are fumbling, and it's not just him screwing up. He's got 8 TDs this year and 3 interceptions. This team is just fumbling the ball. They have 13 or not 13 fumbles. They have a bunch of fumbles. I have to look at the turnover ratio. I just looked, I forgot. They have a bunch of fumbles, a bunch of turnovers just based on that. So the whole team is not playing for him. So I don't blame him as much. But I don't know about I'm not touching the game because I think there's too much variance myself. I don't even want to like parlay anything or tease or anything. I lean Jacksonville to win the game, but 5.5 seems like a really solid number to me in this situation. Let's move on to the next game. Detroit versus Vikings. Vikings -1.5. Total is 50.5.
Yeah, so we're looking at the marquee game of the week, right? I mean, I guess you could say Kansas City, San Francisco, at least based on records.
For the morning, yeah, it deserves a primetime spot.
Love the way the Vikings have performed on offense thus far. They've shown up against some pretty good defenses. The first half against Green Bay was solid. Routed Houston. Showed up in the second half when they needed to against San Francisco, and obviously putting up 23 against the Jets isn't that easy to do. So they're performing. Like I said, I think they're due for some regression. Darnold, 63% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. Really, they've been carried through the ground game with Aaron Jones. I think he's averaging 5 yards a carry right now, and has rushed the ball 71 times so far. So he's really been the key and the big pickup. He's 29 years old. I think he had plenty left in the tank when he left Green Bay, so I'm not overly concerned about the usage with him. But they still aren't even close to the yards per game as some of the bigger high-flying offenses, right? I think they're at 323 yards per game. Trying to pull it up, it's slow. So, yeah, 323 yards per game for the Vikings, 17th in the NFL. And I think at some point they're going to run into a defense that's going to stunt them a little bit. I thought it was going to be the Lions. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson hurts. Losing him. So, I mean, you got to take a point off of Detroit probably for him, or at least a half point. So I'm not going to play this game. I'm going to sit back and enjoy. I think the line's sharp. I think it's going to be a close game right down to the end. Whoever has the ball last is probably going to win. If I had a lean here, I'd probably look to play the over. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think both teams are going to be into it and a fast track inside. So it's up to 50.5 now. Hard to pull the trigger maybe a little bit, but 27-24 is certainly not out of reach for these two teams where they're rolling right now on offense.
I myself have a better number on this than what it is now, but I don't like the spot that they have to play the Vikings coming off the bye. But at the same time, I think to myself, whenever undefeated teams go into a bye, it's almost more like a disruption. It would have suited the Vikings a lot more if they had a bye week later in the year, in my opinion. But that's a great point on the offense, because the Vikings, even though they're number one in defensive EPA, whereas the Lions are 9th, the Vikings are 14th in offensive EPA, and the Vikings are sitting there at 4th, or the Lions are sitting there at 4th. And, I think the Hutchinson injury is going to hurt, but I don't think it hurts them the next week. I think this is a rally for the defense. I think they kind of rally, and so this is my favorite teaser leg of the week. Probably is the Lions right now. So wink, wink on what might happen when I get to a later game.
One more thought on that real quick. If you think about the Lions record, right, that's where some of these plays are going to come in. People are still betting the Vikings at 5-0. The one game they lost, they doubled up on the Buccaneers in yards. It was a turnover issue and an efficiency issue for them. They don't lose that game. I think they're at least, maybe laying a point here. So we'll have to wait and see where they end up at. So I got to take a 1 second break. I will be right back, Kiev.
No problem. I will talk about the next game. Then we have the Titans versus the Bills, and the Titans are plus 9.5. The total on this game is 41. This is getting too high, and I think that 9.5 is just giving a lot more respect to the Bills than they deserve. Now, I will say that some of the reason is Will Levis is beginning crapped on for the season, and I think, the fact that Snead, their best corner, is hurt is another thing that drove this up, and the Amari Cooper thing. But I don't think that's enough. I mean, I can't stand Will Levis as a quarterback, and he something's wrong with that guy. He gives away games, and you trust this guy not to throw a pick 6 when they're down 3 and you miss the cover. That's hard to trust him, dude, because that's what he's been doing. They're up on the Bears 17-0 and then lost the game. And that was the first game of the season. I think Mason Rudolph is the guy you go forward with if you're the Titans. But how are you going to get to the window when Treylon Burks, his wide receivers, hurt? Ernest Jones, Tyjae Spears is the backup running back. L'Jarius Sneed, their best corner, is hurt. It's just only a matter of time. But this is also feels like a spot where Buffalo is it kind of flats out. They kind of beat the Jets. It feels like kind of a flat spot for them. But man, if Sneed is back and the line stays 9.5 or God forbid 10, I'm going to force myself to play the Titans. But right now, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not playing it either. It got up too big, and I was looking at the teaser when it's at 8.5, and I didn't do it. And I'm kind of kicking myself. The more I dug into this, Buffalo's not losing this game, Kiev. They got in the shootout with Arizona. They blew the doors off Miami. They blew the doors off Jacksonville. They're 2 losses. They're 2 pretty good teams, Baltimore and Houston. Tennessee is a bad football team. I don't care who's a quarterback. And Buffalo seems to do extremely well in those situations against the teams that they should beat. And I think this is an appropriately priced line. I think it's going to be a 7 to a 10-point victory for Buffalo. But I'm not getting the window with it at 9.5.
Well, yeah, neither. And one thing I will say is Buffalo is getting a lot healthier right now, too. It's not just the fact that they added Amari Cooper. Their defense that's been hurt the last couple weeks are basically all the main guys, minus Milano, who's always hurt and was hurt, right at the beginning of the season, is not coming back. But they got Bernard back. And he even played last week, too. But, just the fact that Buffalo is finding – yeah, this could be just one of those Buffalo games. You're like, oh, okay, that's the team that we remember being Super Bowl contenders. This could be the game. You see that, and this could be the game where Will Levis finally loses his job. But as long as Levis is in, I am not getting to the window, most likely. Hopefully not. Texans, Packers. Packers now. I don't know what to call this because there's some soft -3s, Shawn, and there's some -2.5s out there still. I'll start on this one. I bet the Packers. I hate saying that as a Bears fan, but I don't bet with my heart. I bet with my brain. Packers are a better team than Houston, and this is just a much better spot for the Packers. Houston's second game in a row on the road, coming off a road win. They're coming off a road win, and it's their second game in a row. It's a little bit cold in Green Bay. I didn't check the temperature. I didn't feel the need to. I think now it's probably when you want to take a look at some NFL weather. It says 68 slight chance of rain showers right now for this game time, which is actually decent weather. But the whole fact that Nico Collins is out really hurts this Texans team. And I know they got Tank Dell, but Jari Alexander is going to be on Diggs. And so I kind of feel like Diggs is going to be very limited. And this just could be a play where the Packers kind of get ahead and keep pounding. The Packers' last home game, Shawn, I think, was a loss against the Vikings with Love. And so this is kind of like that. Or did they just win at home? Never mind.
They did home against Arizona.
They just won at Arizona. Okay. Well, either way, I think the Packers are the better team than Houston. And I just think the NFC North's that good. But Houston, before last week, was 1-4 ATS as an away favorite. As an away team. I think they're going to. I think that the Packers will cover 2.5. I would rather not take 3. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I bet the Packers at 2.5 early in the week as well. It's kind of bouncing around like you said right now. You look at the schedules and the wins and the perceptions of the team values and what we've done. So Houston plays a tough game against Chicago. Barely beats Indy week 1 with the Hail Marys thrown around at the end of the game with Indy trying to come back. Beats Jacksonville by 4, holds their own against Buffalo, gets a 3-point win there, and then blows the doors off in New England. Now, there's some good wins in there. So I think this team is certainly capable of coming into Green Bay and getting a win. But I also think that Green Bay and Love are hitting their stride, right? That first game against Minnesota, coming off the injury, he certainly missed a lot of throws, gave the ball away a little bit more than he had in the past, season or so. Per game, and Minnesota looked good, and they got up 28-0. And then he got in a little bit of a rhythm in the second half. Minnesota sat on the ball, played some soft coverages, but once he got in that rhythm, he looked like Love from last year again, and that's carried over since then. The win at LA, well, maybe not super impressive. He looked good there, and he certainly looked good against Arizona last week. So I think Love is locked in. Houston's defense has struggled a little bit against some good quarterbacks, but it's also been, I can't say they've been awful. Minnesota was really the only one that run it up on them. They held Buffalo in check pretty good. They held Trevor Lawrence fine. So I think this will be a good test. But I just think the Packers at home with with what I think is the better quarterback and the better amount of weapons around him now with that young receiving core. You hit the nail on the head. Nico Collins is out, and Diggs is going to be blanketed all day. I think they're going to have trouble moving the ball. So I'm on the Packers.
It looks like Wicks practice a little bit too. And I know Watson will play. Tucker Kraft is limited at practice, so he could be back. Jaden Reed practiced also. I think most of those guys you'll should see, and obviously Dobbs got his head straight now, which is obviously very important. I think that the Packers are one of the most healthier teams. We're one of the healthier teams, not the most healthy team, but they're one of the healthier teams, I would say, in the league. Of course, there's a lot of guys questionable, just like everything, but the Texans a little bit more banged up. And I misquoted Texans as just a road team. I was thinking road favorite. As a road team, they're just 6-6 since 2023. So there's nothing there to go by, but I wanted to correct myself on that. I wonder if Aziz Al-Shaair is going to play because he didn't practice on Wednesday. Maybe that was just a day off for the guy. But there's definitely some injury concerns for the Texans here in this situation. And by the way, Jimmy Ward, their safety, not expected to play Week 7 against Green Bay, which is huge. So I mean, it's Packers for sure but get it under the 3. Shop it around. There's plenty of opportunity there. Let's move on to the next game. We got the Cincinnati Bengals against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are plus 5.5. The total is 41.5. Okay, so this is another one where you need to shop, and obviously the cat's out of the bag here in this situation because, man, there's a few 6s out there, Shawn, but there's 5.5s. I say get it quicker. The reason that is because the Browns, in general, really own this Cincinnati Bengals team, in general. So you look at the history of these matchups, and you got to understand that you can go by history because you have the same coaches there and basically the same quarterbacks. I know that Watson's been hurt, but I'm going to bring this game up and I'll explain the history. Cleveland, for some reason, always has their number. Over the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, Cleveland's won 6 of them. Now, last year, Cleveland was terrible and they lost to Cincinnati's backup. That's fine, whatever. Both of them were. The game before that in Cleveland won 24-3, and that was against Joe Burrow. Okay, and then obviously the history fairly favors Cleveland. Looking back at these matchups, now Cleveland's been disrespected, and Cleveland actually now has some sort of an offensive line. Now, people say, "Oh, this team's not going to make the playoffs." That's not how these guys are thinking right now. It's too early in the season. They're thinking, "I'm going to face a rival in my division at home. I'm going to show up for this game. I expect Jedrick Wills to show up. Jack Conklin's going to be there playing, obviously, on the line. And the biggest thing is Nick Chubb. I think he's a big boost. He's coming back this week, and he's going to start at running back this week. Myles Garrett's off the injury report. You still got Devin Bush there. Jordan Hicks is questionable. I hope he plays. But I still like them at 5.5. I just think you should shop for the 6. What are your thoughts, Shawn?
Yeah, I'm staying away from this one just because I still think Cincinnati's offense hasn't clicked right. But more concerning for me is Cincinnati's defense and what they've allowed for points. So I still think there's an explosion coming from Cincinnati's offense at some point. I don't necessarily think it's going to be this game against the Browns, who've been fairly solid on the defensive side of the ball outside again that game against Washington, but that was more their offense putting them in crappy situations. I think they were 1 for 13 on 3rd down, so the defense was constantly in bad positions on that one. But I lean Cleveland. I can't pull the trigger. I'm just waiting for that Cincinnati upshoot, and I think it could be coming. I like the Chubb angle. I don't think he's going to play a ton of downs, but he's going to get 10 to 12 carries and get involved in the game, and certainly an emotional boost coming back. So lean Cleveland, not pulling the trigger at this number. If it gets to 6 or 6.5 and stays there, I may work my way into it, may even make it a teaser like over 10 at some point too.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to the next game. Eagles versus Giants. This has been between 3.5 and 3. I'm curious where the Circa has it. They released their lines for the contest just recently here. I thought it might have been 3.5 on the contest, Shawn. I'm going to look right now, see what the Circa has it as.
3.5 on contest.
Yeah, 3.5 in contest. Okay. I was on the Giants last week as one of my larger plays and lost. I think Dayball's an absolute bonehead. I think he's an offensive coordinator, not a coach. I have no idea why, with 55 seconds left and it's only second down, that you try for a field goal when the guy just missed one from that distance. It's like that is just disheartening for the team. You drive down there and you got 55 seconds left. Try to get the onside to get the field goal, not to get the touchdown when you have 55 seconds left, you bonehead. It blows my mind. But of course, other things happened, like Chase Brown took it to the house. I thought that he couldn't take knees, but at the same time, I think that was the drive past the 2-minute warning. I don't know. Or maybe it was the one before the 2-minute warning. That's a moot point. It doesn't matter. I believe Dayball let him score just to get the ball back. I think from a coaching perspective, I could see the same thing happen again. But here's another thing. The Eagles just seem to own this team. I'm not high on the Eagles either, but they seem to own this team for some reason. Staying away. What about you?
I am on the Eagles. This line got down to 3, and I hit it at 3. I think it might float around between 3 and 4 again. Dable, certainly not my favorite coach. I think I texted you on Monday night or Sunday night, whichever night that game was, when they went for it on 4th and 2 from their own 38, down 7, had held Cincinnati all game long with 13 minutes left in the third quarter. I get that the script is flipped and you're supposed to, go for everything within that for percentages and all that, but your defense is playing good and you're going to give Cincinnati a 40-yard field if you miss it with 27 minutes left in the game. Come on. And then the end of the game stuff as well. Like you said, I don't understand his coaching philosophy. The Giants are certainly playing better than I expected. Let's start there, right? Beat Seattle, gave Cincinnati a real good game last week. Showed up a little bit against Dallas, beat Cleveland. Tight games against Washington. The only real bad game was the opener against Minnesota. So they've been in stuff, but the offense has still not impressed me a lot on this squad. And I don't think getting Neighbors back, obviously they played just fine without him, I thought, and looked okay, especially in that Seattle game. So if he's back, I still don't like the Giants. I think the Eagles are still more than a 3-point team better than the Giants here. I had it at 4.5, so I'm definitely in at 3. And there's also a little bit of revenge angle here too, right? There's that guy at running back for Philadelphia that the Giants decided to let go and is just tearing stuff up. That Barkley guy, right?
Prop bets.
I think he's going to be motivated to do some damage in this game too. So
yeah, you got to bet the prop on him for sure. Thanks for reminding me. I was going to write that down. It's in New York, but it shouldn't matter. The reason I'm not saying stats here, and I know the Giants are like 17 in EPN defense, that's their better unit, because the Eagles are better than on offense, and that's not even counting the games that A.J. Brown missed. That's not even counting the games that Swift missed, or Smith, Devontae Smith. Yeah, it's just
they weathered the storm, right? They went 2-1 and weathered the storm without those guys. And here they are coming in, getting healthy, playing the Giants rival game. Oof.
Yes.
Over Philly.
Yep. I feel you, man. I think that was a misleading final score too last week against the Browns. They should have beat the Browns by a hell of a lot more. I like where head's at. I could see myself getting to the window here for sure, Shawn. So was this your first play, Eagles? Or you played something else? You played.
I played the Packers, Eagles.
Okay, Packers and Eagles. That's it. Okay, Packers, Eagles, and there is 3s. So I'm going to count this as 3 for you, for sure. All right, next game we have. Geez, we're just all over your game. Seahawks, Falcons. Falcons -3 now. Total 51. Why don't you go at it?
Yeah, like I talked about, perception is value, and who you've played and what you've done against those teams 6 weeks in really does mean something, especially in the NFL. It's not a week-to-week game, but it's a whole season game, and you can build that picture once we get this far in the season. And for me, the Seahawks underperformed. Yes, they've been injured the last couple of weeks, but that defense has certainly proven to be problematic. You gave up 20 to a New England team that hasn't sniffed that for quite a while against any decent defense. 29 to the Giants without Neighbors. Obviously, they haven't scored against anybody. You just gave up 42 to Detroit and 36 to San Francisco, and San Fran's highest output of the year. So I think their defense is in trouble. They're getting a little healthier. Obviously, the trade should shore up the inside a little bit, but I don't think what is it, Jackson Rodney? I can't even think of his name right now. He'll help, but he's week 1 in, and I don't think that's that important. But if you look at Atlanta now and what they've done and against who they've done it with, Kirk Cousins getting right, starting to get straightened out. You've beaten a Tampa Bay team that's proved Pepsi. Carolina showed up decent against Kansas City, beat a good Philly team. After the opener, that offense has performed, and it only keeps getting better. So my concern with Atlanta is if the defense can hold up. But I think they gave up some garbage time the last couple of games. If Tampa was certainly Baker Mayfield flying high in the second half. In the first half, they got the ship righted in the second half, and then were able to tone him down. So I think the defense is starting to play better. I just think 3 points at home. We're not going to have a bunch of road teams coming in and covering spreads this week.
I'm surprised it's down to 3.
And actually, I got it so much, 2.5.
It's minus 105.3. I mean, what the hell am I missing here? This kept coming down. I mean, is there some sort of injuries on the Falcons that I don't know about? This is really confusing to me. I'm going to take this with you for a show play too. It makes sense. My algorithm says to take it. My power ratings say to take it. Atlanta is better, and Cousins is really showing his quality right now. He was great last week, and now I know it was against Carolina, but dude, when they played Tampa, he put his pedal to the metal and he beat that team. Tampa's a very good team. I don't understand. Justin Simmons didn't practice Wednesday, their safety, but that's fine. They've been playing without Troy Anderson, and I don't understand this line move too much. I'm gonna have to dig deeper into it most likely, but I'll make this an official play for the podcast in my 3, and I'll play it myself. I always play my official plays. And if you look at the injury report too, Seattle is still banged up. Byron Murphy, Boy, Mafe, Ray Woolen, Laviska Chenault, one of their wide receivers, and their offensive line is still banged up. Don't forget the guys they lost: Rayshawn Jenkins, Artie Burns, Jarek Reed. These guys are all just trashed. I don't understand this one whatsoever. I'm on it with you. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Carolina Panthers. No, I'm skipping the Miami Dolphins versus Colts. I'm passing this game, but all I'm going to say, here's the thing: it's disgusting. But I feel like I'm missing something with the Dolphins because I do feel like Mike McDaniel from an X's and O's, and I think the bye week's really going to help this team. And I don't think Richardson's good at all. But Miami's also been terrible on defense, so I'm passing. Anything, or do you pass?
I'm not on the game at all. I guess the biggest note for me is I think that Indianapolis is a better team when Flacco's in at quarterback. I think they've shown that already. I think Richardson's 2 turnover prone. Yeah, does he have one hell of an arm and throw a great deep ball? He sure does, but he also makes bonehead decisions, takes the ball down and runs before he should sometimes. And Flacco is a veteran that's proved that he can steady that offense a little bit and get them moving down the field. So pretty sure Richardson's been confirmed. Again, I didn't look at that this morning, but I'm pretty sure he's in. So if he's in, I am out, and I probably would lean the Dolphins, but I'm not touching the game with 2 teams like this that have been Jekyll and Hyde all over the place all season. So.
Yeah, I could see. I thought Richardson was going to play last week. It's not like Flacco was announced. It was announced right before the game. It was kind of like Richardson was healthy enough to play. It's just they didn't do it. He took some first team reps last week too. So it blew my mind. It was almost like games that they're playing, which I want to stay away from those teams. Anyway, Panthers, Commanders. This thing was up to 9. It's back to 8. It's kind of hovering between the 7.5 and the 9. Total is at 51.5, Shawn. I'm just telling you that this is my other teaser leg here. I like the Commanders to win this game, but I don't trust them a ton to cover against with a bad defense and just feeling so good. I mean, Carolina kind of looks at this team as like, you're in the dumps with us. Matt, you're successful. We're not. I feel like Andy Dalton can give them maybe one last hurrah, but it wouldn't shock me if the Commanders blow them out either. Okay, it wouldn't shock me. My numbers say Commanders by 11. So I'm not betting it because it's so hard to cover big spreads in the NFL, but I will tease it down to 2.
So let's start here, right? Daniels looks like the real deal, at least through 6 games. Obviously, the Commanders are an improved team. What is only slightly improved so far, at least in my eyes, is the defensive side of that football. They've still given up 145 points to a couple good offenses, right? You had Baltimore and Cincinnati in there, and Arizona, they held to 14. But I still think they're susceptible to teams with strong passing attacks that can get the ball down the field. The Carolina Panthers, that being said, are not one of those teams. But, I still think that Carolina is going to score a little bit with the holes that they have on the defensive side of the football. So for me, I'm not going to play a side on this or even tease it down. I actually have these guys on a money line parlay with Cincinnati and with the Monday night or the second Monday night game, the Chargers. So I'm playing a 3-way money line parlay at about 250 with those 3 teams, and then hoping I can hedge out if I need to on the Chargers on Monday if it goes the wrong way for me. But that's how I'm going to play the game. I think the Commanders are much improved, but I'm not laying 8, 9, 10 points with their defense against anybody.
Raiders and Rams. Rams up to 7, 43.5. That's a pretty big line move here. I didn't expect a 7. The Raiders have all these issues with Crosby. He's not practicing. He doesn't have to practice. I think he kind of just bullies the whole team around. He's a cocky dude. He's a tough dude. I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't mess with him. But I mean, he was even talking shit about Nick Bosa the other week. He's like, calling him like a whiner and stuff for complaining about the refs. And I'm like, the worst thing you can do is say that because you're gonna get held so bad one of these days. You're gonna start whining, dude. So I don't understand this Raiders team. I think they're coached terribly. And the Rams coming off the bye, it's McVay off the bye. I'm scared of McVay off the bye. I think I still have McVay as one of the better coaches in this league. Maybe even top 6, top 5. I don't know where I have them. I have to look. I kind of update these every quarter or something. But no, I'm not touching it still. I think Cooper Kupp could play too.
Yep, Kupp hasn't been announced yet. I'm staying away. I guess at 7, I'd lean the Raiders. But again, with their offense, Adams gone. I think Jacoby Myers had an ankle injury. I'm not sure where he's at with that. So their offensive firepower is severely diminished. Zamir White was hurt too, I believe. But they're down weapons. O'Connell's going to be coming in second game. I just don't see them performing well. But at the same time, the Rams haven't exactly proven to be blowing anybody out. But maybe if they get healthy, get cut back. Coming off the bye with Kyron Wilson, they can put together a good game. 7, I'd lead in the Raiders, but I'm not touching anything here.
The Rams should be better than what they've done. 17th in offensive EPA, even with all those problems. Defense definitely bad, 31st in EPA. Yet I could see Crosby getting to the quarterback with that banged up offensive line too. I'm staying away from this game. It's just a bad flags all over the place. Bad flags on the Raiders team. Bad flags on the injuries still for LA. And there's good ones too with them coming back off. So I'm staying away. Let's move on to the next game. Chiefs, 49ers, and this is probably the game this is the game of the week. Let's not sugarcoat it here. The Niners are minus 1.5. The total on this game is 47. Minus 1.5, total 47. What are your thoughts on this one?
So if you told me before the season that Kansas City was going to be 5-0, I would have said, yeah, not really shocked, right? If you would have said Kansas City is going to be 5-0 and they're going to be in the bottom half of the league in yards per play, I would have been a little shocked. They're doing it with defense. And San Francisco, outside of last week against the porous Seattle group, hasn't performed that well on the offensive side of the football. So I think this could actually be a little bit of a defensive battle. I think it'd be a slow start, feeling each other out with the post-Super Bowl hangover. I kind of am leaning towards putting some money on the under. I haven't quite done it yet, but that's kind of my angle here, is I think there's going to be a slow start defensive battle. Mahomes, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks. Not exactly lighting the world on fire, like I said, and obviously the running game hasn't been great. So they have yet to get it going. Is it going to happen against the 49ers defense? They're banged up a little bit, maybe, but I think this is a good underplay here at 47. I think the defense is going to carry the day.
All right, under 47 for you. I'm not sure about what to think about the Niners defense. It's not quite as good as it was last year. The Chiefs, I think their defense looks good, but I mean, they played the Ravens scored on them a lot. They should have won the game. They should have had an extra 7 points. They played a really banged up Bengals team. The Bengals were just completely banged up. The Bengals should have won that game, but they got refed out of it. I like the Niners first half. Okay, it's hard to trust Shanahan not to choke because he does it so often, especially in big games like this. But I'm going to go Niners first half in this situation. I think money line first half is probably a decent play. I'm definitely not laying points because this could be tied at the half. So let's see what the money line is for the half, or if it's even up here. Here it is, quarters, halves. Minus 122, Niners first half. I'll go minus 122, Niners first half for just a unit, Shawn. Let's move on to the next game then. I think we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. We have
Sunday night.
Sunday night. That's it. Sunday night. And I'm sorry, I'm losing track here. Jets, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh +2, total 39. Russell Wilson announced to play this game, Shawn. What's going on with that?
Well, Justin Fields is still Justin Fields, last I checked, and he's not that good. That's why the Bears got rid of him, right? I still trust Russell Wilson more on the decision-making side of things. Fields hasn't been awful, right? 66%, 5 touchdowns only, though, 1 interception, doing some good stuff with his legs. So, I mean, they're just looking for a little extra spark. The team's 4-2. There's no reason not to take it. Look at Russ if he's healthy and see if he can drive that offense forward. Plus, you're going in against the defense now that has obviously performed, not quite up to what we thought they'd be, but they've still only given up 3 points to New England, 9 or 10 to Denver, 23 to Minnesota, 23 to Buffalo. So they're a solid squad. They're going to have plenty ready, I think, for Mr. Fields if he's in there. I think Russ has more experience and is a better passer. So I think that's what they're going to and what they need. With him starting and obviously not having a lot of chemistry in the building yet with the receivers, I kind of lean New York here, but I'm not going to touch anything with them coming off the short week. The Steelers 2 losses, 3 points to Indy, 3 points to Dallas. And their wins have been fairly dominant on the defensive side of the ball. Could they hold Aaron Rodgers to 10 or 13 points? Sure, and pull out a victory 17-13. But I think they need to make this a little bit more of a shootout to be competitive, and I'm not 100% sold they're going to do that. So lean Jets, but no play for me.
I really thought this was a good teaser leg, and it maybe still is. But what the heck are you guys doing switching your quarterback in this situation? The Jets, and I listen. The Jets actually, and I listen to Chernoff with Quinn and Williams. I do agree with them. They bring a lot of good pressure up the middle, and that's where you need a taller quarterback like Justin Fields and one that can scramble on the outside. Now I know Will McDonald's tied for number 2 in sacks, but that's because he played the Titans 3 times. He got 3 sacks against the Titans, so half of his sacks are literally from the Titans game. It makes no sense for Russell Wilson in this spot. I don't think Russell Wilson's that good. Even though I think Fields is overrated. I think Fields is a quarterback that just does it with his legs. A poor man's Lamar Jackson. I don't know. Maybe sometimes I've even seen him play as good as Lamar. It just depends upon the coach and the team. It's just it's weird that they did that, and it makes me stay completely away from that. I was really thinking this would be a great teaser leg, but I'm staying away because this could be something stupid that happens. I don't get it. Tomlin, it makes some weird choices there. I don't understand it. I think you got some construction going on behind you, Shawn.
Could be. Might just be my chair making noise too as I'm swiveling here. Another thing with the Steelers, they got to get some stuff honed in here and get it honed in fast, and that may be another reason they're looking at Wilson. They haven't played any division games yet up to this point. And they're going to get that run with the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens all coming up here before the end of the season. So 7 games, and I don't think they play their first one for another couple of weeks yet. They're going to be 9 games in before they play their first conference game. So I think they want to get everything locked in, make sure they got the best pieces in place for when they get to those, because obviously it's going to be a dogfight in that division going down to the end with Baltimore and possibly with Cincinnati.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. Let's move on to the next game then. I mean, we had a lot to discuss already. Let's move to the Monday night games, and the first one is Baltimore, Tampa Bay plus 3.5, total 49.5. I have a premium play on this one, so I'm not going to get too into it. But what I will say, and I have a good number too, but what I will say is that Baltimore can be so yin and yang, and they also have choked games away, but at the same time, Tampa Bay's defense is really bad, and their rushing isn't as good on defenses where I wanted to see them in the past. You know, with Vita Vea there, they used to be a top rushing defense. Now their rush EPA, and I'm pulling the numbers up right now, is somewhere in the middle. You know, actually, sorry, it's 25. It's like now they can't even really stop the run, and if you can't stop Henry, then I really fear for you. I just don't think that, you know, Tampa runs the ball well, and that's the best part of the Ravens defense is the rushing defense, ranking number 4 in EPA. But Baker Mayfield is throwing ducks, man, or throwing darts, not ducks, darts. And you know, he and his receivers have played for years together now. And that's Baltimore's weakness is against the pass. They're 27th in pass EPA. That's all I'm saying about the game. What are your thoughts?
Hopefully I'm not stealing your thunder here, because I am going to give out, I believe, my last official individual gameplay here. What if I told you Baltimore is averaging just under 7 yards per play? That is nuts. That's crazy. 7 yards per play in the NFL. There's a lot of teams that are up there a little bit higher, but they are leading the NFL by a good chunk. Tampa Bay, not too shabby themselves. They're checking in at 6.1. You look at the two defenses, who they've played, how that's performed for them. Baltimore is 22nd in the NFL. Yards per play allowed. Granted, they've played a few of the better quarterbacks and better offenses. They held Josh Allen in check, but obviously that offense hasn't quite clicked yet. So as I look at these two teams and I look at that number and what Tampa Bay has had for these games constantly all year, 57 points against Washington. The one game they don't go over against the high-powered Detroit squad, you know, they end up with 236 on offense, still give up 450 yards, 49 points combined against Philly, 66 with Atlanta. And then last week, obviously New Orleans was injured, but New Orleans still put up 27 points. There was some defensive play in there too. In a game that's got 78 points. Tampa Bay is going to score against this group. I think Baltimore is going to be able to move the ball against Tampa as well. I'm jumped in on the over, I believe, at 49.5.
All right.
And I am taking it at 49.5. I think this game's got 27-24 or more written all over it.
I don't disagree with that at all. Weather in Tampa, no hurricane this week. You know, I think it looks like it's holding up so far. I gotta just take a quick look here. 10 mile per hour wind, 76 degrees. Should be a beautiful night game in Tampa. So I think that's going to get up to 51 too. So over 49.5 for Shawn here on this, and I have a strong lean to the over as well in this situation. So there you go, my man. Good play. Let's move on to the next game. Then finally, we get to the Packers? No, sorry, well, I'm looking at the wrong. See, I'm going too far.
Chargers.
Okay, Chargers are favored on the road at -2, total 44. But you kind of let the cat out of the bag, saying that you're going to go with a parlay here.
Yeah, I'm actually on the Chargers and tied in with the Bengals and the Commanders on the parlay. The Cardinals have pulled off a couple of nice wins, right? Blowing the doors off the Rams and with the comeback victory against the 49ers. But they've had some big old donuts in here where they just didn't show up. Washington game was awful. The Packer game last week wasn't great. So they're susceptible to it. Granted, they're coming home after 2 road games, which is only going to help them. But Jim Harbaugh does find a way to get the best out of his teams, even when they're struggling to put some talent on the field. And their defense has held up just fine. So I think my lean here is on the Chargers, even laying the 2.5. I've got them in that money line parlay. But I think I'm going to come into it with a nice plus 250 ticket coming into Monday night and decide if I want to hedge out of it and put some money on the Cardinals on that too. So that's really the angle here for me. Certainly won't hedge out of the whole thing, but if I get those first two, and I'm gonna have some money on both sides come Monday night.
The Cardinals frustrate me because they're so yin and yang from week to week. You know, one week they're beating the Niners. Of course, the Niners lost their kicker, but still. And then they're losing to some bad teams. I can't bet the Chargers as a favorite here on the road after a big division win. I love Jim Harbaugh as a coach. I think he's going to be fantastic there. I do think they'll get a Super Bowl in his tenure. But, you know, this is a situation. Cardinals now a home dog. Kyler Murray, very talented. I'm curious how Harbaugh can scheme to stop something like that. I'm curious if Marvin Harrison Jr. plays. He's been banged up, but he might play. So the McBride's just been such a stud for these Cardinals. I can see this just being shootout right at the end. So that's my thoughts on that. No opinion on the side. I think it's a good number. Shawn, great stuff, my man. Now for some beer bet bangers, my man. Beer money bets, whatever you want to call it. Anything excite you out there that you kind of want to throw some beer money on? Could be anything maybe plus 150 or above.
Well, I did a little bit more than that, and it's just on tonight's game. I threw a little edge on there just for a fun little beer bet at plus 750. I took Spencer Rattler over 250 yards and the Saints to win because I figure if there's a way that they're going to pull this off, he's going to have to find a way with no weapons to throw that ball. They're not going to be able to do it just with Kamara on the ground. So if they find a way to win, I think Rattler's going to get some throwing yardage, and I'm hoping to get to that 250 point. So I just threw a little $5 plus 750 on that one for fun, Kiev. You know, as I get into the weekend, I'll probably look at a couple more like that. But I didn't really see any big old money line, you know, plus 150, 180, 200s that I really liked this week. So
yeah, it's one of those situations. You know, I'm probably got a few sprinkles myself. You know, it's I'm just going to tell you, I think that the Browns can win it outright. So plus 200 on the money line will be mine. It's just like a money line sprinkle, but whatever. I'd sprinkle anyway, but I think the Browns could win this game outright. Should prize some people. I don't trust Zach Taylor. I don't think Zach Taylor's a good coach either. So when it's bad coach against bad coach, I'd like to take the points in this situation. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's plus 210 right now on FanDuel.
What are you talking about? You got two-time coach of the year over there in Cleveland.
Yeah, I disagree with that too, my friend. I disagreed with that too, but that only helps my case for the money line sprinkle. So we'll go with that, Shawn. Great stuff, my man. Really appreciate you coming on, working our listeners, get your great information in place.
Yeah, so you can find me on the site. You're going to hear this podcast on at theoddsbreakers.com. You can find me on Twitter at TheGreatKnoche. I'm not the most active guy out there, but if you want some insight, you're willing to lay the time, send me a message. I'll always answer. I love to chat about sports for sure, and anybody and anywhere I can. And I don't get a ton of write-ups on the odds breakers, but when I do, we're 3-1 on the young season. Overall record in the NFL, 23-16 on the sides and the totals. A little rougher on the teasers, coming in at 5-9. So we're still making money, hoping to get that rolling. Come check us out. Got great stuff over on the site.
All right. Make sure you guys check out Shawn. Shawn, thanks again. We'll be talking soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kev.